Hi guys, if you haven't been here before, my name is Pip and welcome to my home and kitchen. Today we are going to be trying to do a massive gluten-free cook-up. I wanted to do one the other day but got a late start and then got derailed by some bad news, and so I really only roasted a chicken and did a few other things, and even then the chicken took forever to roast, and so it was 9:30 by the time I got to eat dinner, which was a bit late. So today we're going to try and do as much as we can, even though it's already 2 o'clock, so another late start. But there is a bunch of different types of citrus behind me that need to be dehydrated. There's some more in a box that I need to scrub up and dehydrate. We harvested some cauliflower from the garden in the last videos. I've never cooked homegrown cauliflower before because my cauliflowers have always been eaten by bush rats long before they could be harvested. So this will be exciting. So I'm making a cauliflower pilaf with that. I want to make some bruschetta because I'm in the mood. And there's a few things like Rice Krispie treats I need to make because my marshmallows and rice bubbles have been in the pantry for a really long time. Then I've got a bunch of new gluten-free recipes that I'm going to be trying. Things that use almond flour because I managed to get heaps quite cheaply at Costco. And I was a bit disappointed to discover that you can't really preserve almond flour all that well, because otherwise I would have got way more from Costco because it was so much cheaper than our local supermarket. But apparently you can actually freeze it if you jar it first. So that's exciting, and I think I'm probably going to get some more next time I go to Costco. But I want to try and use some of it and try some new recipes. I want to try an almond meal bread that I found online last night and a few other recipes. I also got some dehydrated blueberries at Costco, and I want to try and see if I put them in like muffins or a banana bread, if it makes it less gross and soggy, because I love blueberries, but I hate blueberries in cakes and things like that. Because when you put them in, even if they're frozen, they just turn to like a mush in your cake, and it's just disgusting. So I wanted to see if I put dehydrated berries in, if it was good, bad, or sideways. I've also got to can all my dehydrated vegetables, which was my first time dehydrating vegetables and will be my first time canning. And I have to try some new sorghum flour recipes because I ordered some bulk sorghum flour to put away in my pantry for long-term storage in Mylar bags, but it only had like a 4-week expiry date. So I need to try and find some recipes to kind of use that flour up so I can freeze whatever it is, because they expired yesterday or today. So I don't know how much longer they're going to be stable in the pantry even if I kind of seal them up properly. So today's the day where we're going to be cooking all of that stuff, hopefully. It's already 2 o'clock. The first thing I wanted to get done was to get my fruits dehydrated for long-term food storage. And the kiwis are for snacks during the week. I really enjoy dried gold kiwi fruit and not so much green kiwi fruit, and it's the reverse when I'm eating the fresh fruit. So I wanted to get these kiwis and some of the citrus in the dehydrator before everything got going with the massive cook-off that I had planned, just because they take so many hours to dehydrate. And at this stage, I'm not comfortable leaving my dehydrator on when I'm out or overnight. I'm just quite sure I'm going to burn something because it doesn't have a timer, and I've over dehydrated things before, so I prefer to do it while I'm up and about during the day and let it finish off overnight. I always hope this will let me have time to do a second batch, but it never works out that way. I don't use these often because I'm always freaked out about chopping my fingers off, even if you get to use one of these. I've heard so many horror stories. But I have tried cutting my dehydrated citrus before by hand, and it wasn't so flash. Now I just got to get it going. Okay. See, that still isn't very level. I'm being struck by a lack of use of these. I might cut these by hand. This is ridiculous. I wonder if, I mean, I don't want to test, but I wonder if that's blunt. Oh well, I'm done with that, we'll do it by hand. After my epic fail with the mandolin, I got the lemons into the dehydrator, and I've also been working on preserving the rind and trying to find ways to make my lemons last as long as possible in different ways. So I tried making powdered rind today, and it was interesting. I learnt a lot. A major reason why I want to do this massive cook up is because it's just me here. I'm the only person who lives here, and gluten-free food is really expensive. It often doesn't hold together well, and it often doesn't taste very nice. So if I can make it, then I can adjust the flavors as I like, even though I don't have the best palate for flavors. And I think that is, again, mostly because I've had a lot of food allergies, so my diet's been pretty restricted over the years. But if you've ever lived by yourself and tried to cook for yourself, it's not as fun as cooking for other people, and it really sucks because you end up eating the same thing over and over and over again. And if you make, let's say, a curry and it doesn't freeze well, you're going to be eating that for lunch and dinner for the next 600 days. I will preface this by saying, yes, I am cooking gluten-free and trying to eat gluten-free, but I am not celiac. So you might see some condiments and things like that that aren't strictly gluten-free. It is hard to find a wide range because I live in a rural area, but also I'm wheat intolerant, not celiac. So I don't have to be as strict as if I was celiac. So that does make it a little bit easier. I've got all my ingredients set out for the cauliflower pilaf, and as always, I've added extra garlic and extra onions because that's how I like things. The recipe calls for 1 onion and a few cloves of garlic, which get cooked until soft for a few minutes on a medium heat, and then you add the cauliflower and cover it in as much curry powder as you need to coat it all, or to taste. I guess it depends on what curry powder you use. This is the only one I like the taste of. I've then got 750 ml of my veggie stock paste with some water. And I'm going to add that with 250 grams of rice, a cinnamon stick, a bay leaf. My brain died for a second there. And I've got 1 whole cauliflower chopped up and ready to go. So I pop my onion in first and get that going for a few minutes before I add the garlic, just to avoid burning the garlic. And then once that's been cooking for a couple of minutes, I will add the cauliflower, and I've cut them into little florets, and I will then start covering them all in the curry powder to make sure I get a good coating and let them cook for a few minutes. And it takes quite a bit of curry to cover everything in curry powder, but that's the taste I actually like. It's a very mild curry powder. I am not a spice fan. I usually then let that cook for 2 to 3 minutes before I add the 750 ml of stock and water and the 250 grams of white rice. It's supposed to be basmati rice, but I didn't have it, so I just added long grain rice. Then I'm adding the cinnamon stick and the 2 bay leaves. So we're getting pretty close to boiling now, and I put a little bit of extra water in because it just looked a little bit different to when I've previously done this, and it didn't look like there was enough water to cover the cauliflower. So what you do once it comes to a boil is you cover it and then stir it occasionally, and it takes about 15 minutes or so for the rice to absorb all of the water, and then it's pretty much done. Then you just turn the heat off is what I do, but you can keep the heat going for another minute on low and add a can of brown lentils in, and then it's done, and I serve with coriander. And this is a really nice vegan curry, and it freezes really well. And so it's just 1 cinnamon stick, and I usually put 3 bay leaves in because they're not big bay leaves. But I've never had cauliflower with green stems, and this is quite different to how a store-bought cauliflower looks. So it'll be interesting to see how it tastes. It looks like now that everything's kind of warmed up, there's more than enough water, so it was probably a mistake to put in that extra little bit of water, but it'll be fine. It'll just be absorbed by the rice. So while I'm waiting for the pilaf to be done, I'm going to get started on prepping for the minestrone so I can get that done. I had hoped to kind of get them done at the same time, but got derailed. Who cares? Let's just get it done and get this cooked and cooled down and in the freezer. You do need to stir it though every so often to avoid getting rice stuck to the bottom of the pan, but you can see most of that water has disappeared now. So this will likely be done now. I'm just gonna check. Oh, we've still got a little bit of water, but really nothing much. So I'm gonna turn that off heat, try and scrape any bits off the bottom, and then while it's cooling down and absorbing the last of the moisture, I'm gonna pop the lentils in. So it's just 1 can of brown lentils, or whatever lentils you can get. And we stir those in and start working to get the cinnamon stick and the 3 bay leaves out. It's a lot harder than normal with the cauliflower having green stems. Normally it's easy to find them. There it is. It was also a little leaf. Oh no, it's a larger leaf. I'm just blind. So now I'm just gonna let that sit on the heat. Well, it's not on heat, but on the hot plate for another few minutes while I get the minestrone ready, and then I will get that one up. And I will just taste this bit that fell off. Doesn't really mix with the lollipop I was just eating, but good. This minestrone recipe is a Sally's Baking Addiction minestrone. It's a really nice thick minestrone, but even being thick, I still find that 5 to 6 cups of veggie broth is not quite enough, even with the 2 cups of water as well, and I inevitably always forget to buy dried thyme, and so I just put in extra Italian herbs. So we've got everything set out just so you guys can see, but I'm probably going to make up a little bit more so I can make a double batch. So we've got carrots, zucchinis, and onions. I always put more onions and garlic than recommended because that's just personal preference. We've got the water, the veggie broth, the garlic, and some minced garlic in there because I got sick of cutting up garlic, tomato paste, and this is the reason why I usually make a double batch, because I don't actually use a lot of tomato paste in life, and so even if I put olive oil in there to try and preserve its life in the fridge, it always goes moldy. So if I make a double batch, then I don't waste any and I just use the whole can or whole tin. We've got kidney beans, diced tomatoes, butter beans, Italian herbs, some defrosting blanched spinach, black ground pepper, bay leaves, red wine vinegar, and some salt. And this is going to make up our super tasty minestrone. Oh, and I've got some gluten-free pasta. So batch number 1 of minestrone is underway. I just packed up the pilaf and I test tasted it, and it had a bit more of a spicy twang than it normally does, and I really don't think that's because I put more curry than normal in it, because I didn't. I'm wondering if that is a side effect of my autoimmune disease being very flared up. As I said, I've been to hospital 3 times in the last month, and that has made me very sensitive pain-wise compared to normal. And I'm just wondering if that's also affected my taste buds, because I had a yellow curry last week and I ordered mild and it damn near burnt my face off. So I don't know if it's my autoimmune disease or if it's just a little bit more spicy than normal. So it'll be interesting to see when these defrost and I eat them, if my body's a bit more settled, if the spicy factor is a bit more settled. Now I'm just gonna stir all that together and double check that I've put everything in. I'm just gonna scoop out this not so diced bit and dice that up. And then once this comes to a boil, then I can add the pasta and lower it to a sort of simmer for half an hour, and then right when that's done I can pop the spinach in and then it's ready. While the second minestrone gets going, I am going to start an almond flour bread recipe, which is from elizabethrider.com, and I've never made this before, and it's got an option to make it a herb bread as well. So I'm going to make a plain one and a herb one, and we'll just see how they turn out. I've never made anything like this before. I would love to have a gluten-free bread that holds together and that I don't feel like I have to toast in order to either get it to hold together or to get it to not taste disgusting. So fingers crossed, and let's get started with this. And I think this is going to be the last thing I make tonight. The last minestrone is just finished. At the same time, I have finished these almond flour recipes, and I've got to say I'm a little underwhelmed. It says it should be enough to fill half the tray, which it isn't. So unless it rises like some sort of magical bread, which gluten-free bread never does, I just don't see this turning out to look like normal bread like it's supposed to. It's a very kind of heavy mixture once it's all mixed up, and it doesn't have enough bulk, in my opinion, to turn out like normal bread. And it's supposed to now cook for 35 minutes, so I guess we'll see, but it doesn't look anything like a loaf of bread at this point. So all the soups and all the pilafs and everything are all in the fridge cooling down, and then tomorrow I will bag them up into meal-sized portions. This will mean the soup will thicken a bit overnight because the pasta will absorb stuff, but I've tried to portion it out before and it's like molten lava for a while. In a surprise twist, the breads look okay. They haven't risen a lot, but then I didn't expect it. But they rose more than I thought they would, so we'll pop them out and try them. I'm going to taste them while they're warm, and then tomorrow I'll pick up where I left off because I didn't get started till late today. So let's cut the normal one first. Looks like a banana bread. Feels like it's done. Feels like it's moist still though and not dry. It's okay. Doesn't really have any flavor. There's a tiny bit of almond, which is surprising given the amount of almond. It's certainly edible without toasting. I don't know that I'd ever use it in like a soup or as a sandwich or anything. So it's very much like a banana bread-esque vibe, but with less sugar, so it's less sweet. Let's try the herbed one. And this one, it's mostly a rosemary. I didn't have much fresh thyme left, and as we've discovered with the minestrone, I don't have any dry thyme. So again, looks good on the inside, looks like a banana bread with herbs, nice and moist still. Just tastes like rosemary. It's nice. Maybe I'll put a little bit of butter on it and see how it goes. Anyway, that's it for this evening. I'm gonna clean up and head to bed and carry on with the other things I wanted to finish tomorrow. The herb one actually has like a flavor that keeps on going, which is quite pleasant, but really, I mean, it's just the rosemary, that's all it is. But I quite enjoy the taste of rosemary, but for now, Bugalugs and I are going to head to bed. This is last night's efforts. So we've got the cauliflower pilaf, the various almond breads, which I tried toasted this morning and it doesn't really make much difference. The tons and tons and tons of minestrone. So what I will do with these, except for like these ones that are in a small box, is I will portion them out into sandwich bags, so snap lock bags, and then I'll freeze them like that. So I'm just going to get all of these sorted and in the freezer now so that they can get out of the fridge, so I have room to make everything else. I've just done the dishes because the washing machine isn't working, and it's time to get cooking, and then I've still got to put these all away in canning jars, and I've got these out to juice the lemons that I de-skinned yesterday. And once this is done, I'm going to get going on a dough. So I'm going to put the fire on now so that it's warm enough to prove the dough, because it is quite cold today, even though it's actually sunny. These are ready to go in the freezer. There's 12 of them, and there's probably about 4 or 5 servings already in the freezer. So those 2 batches of minestrone will make at least 16 meals for me, which is awesome because I love this. So it'll be nice to not have to cook it for a while. Something I love about my Thermomix, and I mean, it's nothing to do with their recipes because their recipes are generally a bit bland, but I love that you can set the temperature you want, which means when you're making a dough, there's no faffing about to see if you've got the right temperature on your milk. It's just perfectly done for you. It means I can get on to doing other things while not having to watch the milk. So while my yeast is doing its thing, I thought I'd get everything else ready for this herb bread. And I'm going to use rosemary, but I'm probably going to use mostly dried because I can't be bothered to cut up as much as I need, but I'm going to mix in a bit of fresh. And I need garlic powder, and my garlic powder was like one solid lump that had gone bad. Luckily, I had a second one in there. Its expiry date is later this year. I don't think you can see that because the camera doesn't want to focus. So I might need to pop some of that on the list. And you'll never guess what I found in the herb box that I couldn't find last night for love nor money. Oh well. While the regular herb bread does its thing by the fire, I've started with the gluten-free one, and last time I just tried to make this 1-for-1 and it was rubbish. It didn't raise at all. It still tasted alright, but it didn't rise at all. It was very much a flatbread. So this time, for the first time ever, I'm using xanthan gum. Normally I am a low maintenance baker, so I don't bother. If it doesn't work with a 1-to-1, I usually don't bother making it again, but I'm going to try because I really like garlic herb bread. But Google tells me that I need to add 1 teaspoon per cup of flour, so I've added just 2 teaspoons in here. This is 2 1/3 cups of the sorghum flour, which again I've never used before, but I have to use it because I ordered it from the Source bulk food and it only had 3 weeks expiry. And what drives me a bit crazy about their bags is they puncture just as you pick them up, and so this one just has a hole in the middle of it, and I had a lot of problems with like the quinoa and the chia seeds that I ordered from them spilling out too, and the wheat grain. So I probably won't order grain from them again, but let's see what this makes and see what a sorghum flour sorghum flour garlic herb bread tastes like. Sadly, the second garlic powder is just as stuck as the first one, so I've had to hack at this with a knife to get some out, so I'm definitely going to need to buy more. I don't know if this is a common problem with garlic powder. If you've had this issue, let me know below in the comments, because this is kind of annoying. It just seems like the gluten-free one is not mixing in as well. There's still some butter that hasn't mixed, and it doesn't seem to be forming as nice a dough, which I guess is not surprising because gluten-free bread is just complicated and not as tasty as regular bread. I have a deep love for Rice Krispie treats, and I thought these marshmallows and the rice bubbles were closer to their expiry date than they actually were, but I decided was going to make them, so I got to it. I use these big giant marshmallows because I hate eating marshmallows, and I didn't want to have multiple packs of the pink and white marshmallows and then have to deal with the pink ones. So I just get the big jumbo box of white ones and I just make it work. It just takes a little bit longer for them to melt down with the butter, and you need to have a little bit more butter than you might otherwise use. But it tastes really nice when you mix in a little bit of vanilla essence and a little bit of salt. Nice and buttery and creamy when you then add the bubbles in. I've seen recipes for this before, but none of them have ever worked out for me. So I just use a whole bag of marshmallows and I just keep adding chunks of butter until I get the consistency I want. And I probably add a teaspoon at most of vanilla essence and a little sprinkle of salt. And then I just pour in as many rice bubbles as it takes to get a good coating of marshmallow all over them. I like them to be nice and thick and sticky and have chunks of marshmallow going through them. So you can kind of add it however you like. You could add Smarties or M&Ms or whatever you like, but I like mine just plain. I don't bother shaping them too much. I just flatten them out and cut them up after they've been in the fridge for half an hour. Once you've got all your herbs like your rosemary, your thyme, your garlic, and everything all mixed into your butter, and you've grated a stack of cheese to put inside the actual compartments that will make up the pull-apart bread and make it into this beautiful herby, creamy, cheesy mixture, it's time to put it all together and get this bread ready for its second proof. So you need to actually pop it out on the table and break it up into about 12 even pieces. Like with all breads, you punch out that initial first round of air, and then I roll it up into a sausage, and I use a pizza cutter to divide it into its 12 pieces. I then roll them out into little balls, and then I start working on getting them ready to fill up. But I find most doughs, I must be doing something wrong because I always end up with it all over me, particularly with gluten-free doughs. There's just something really sticky about them, and yet they don't stick together and hold together once you cook them. So what I'm going to do now is make the compartments, and you flatten out the pieces of dough into kind of like a little bread sandwich, and then you're going to fill up the inside of each one with the butter herby mixture and some cheese. And you want to get a good amount in each one because this little dough ball is going to rise again and thicken up. And if you don't get a good amount in there, you end up with a herb bread that actually doesn't have as much flavor and that luscious butter taste as you intended. So you need to be pretty generous with your portions and try and fit as much as you possibly can in. And then it's a little bit like rolling them up into little tacos or little burritos before you pop them back in the tray for their second proof. The gluten-free dough still needed more time to do its first proof, so once I had finished the wheat version of the garlic pull-apart bread and wrapped it up for its second proof, it was time to head back to the dehydrator to get the kiwi fruit out and get it all jarred up so that I could have that for a snack for the next couple of weeks. And just when I'd done that, I found a little bandit trying to make its way into the bread. So much denser than the other one. It has risen. I don't think it's doubled in size, but oh god, that's so dense. I'd give it longer, but I mean, it's already had an hour and 15 minutes, so I think that's quite enough. And I don't want the other one to be sitting there proving forever while I wait for this one to go in the oven at the same time, so let's get on with this. It has such a grainier texture, this flour. Like, it almost feels like really fine sand, which is not what regular flour feels like. I'm really wary of like patting it down too much and losing the fluff, but as I fold these over, in typical gluten-free style, they're crumbling, and I don't know if they'll knit themselves back together. All in, hopefully it does some rising in the next 45 minutes, although it's got some catching up to do with the wheat one, so the wheat one will inevitably be more risen because it's had more time. Did you just try and investigate the gluten-free one? It's a bit more tucked up now. Brand new log is on. Dog is no longer eating it, and I'm going to follow his lead and sit down for a bit because my back's killing me. Poor little chap's missed out on his second afternoon walk in 2 days. Well, his second walk of the day in 2 days. But I need to sit down. I'll probably make a bruschetta later, and then that's it for the day. So this one has had 45 minutes and it's puffed back up beautifully. Now, I told my friend that this would be ready in time for her dinner. So, because I've got to go to the shops and her house is en route, and I had some wheat flour that needed to be used. So I'm going to pop this one in, even though the gluten-free one's still got at least another half an hour to prove, but I figure gluten-free always needs longer. So this one's going in now. In theory, it has another 10 minutes to go, but it looks pretty good to me, so I'm going to pull it out and take it round to my friend's house. It seems Rafa didn't appreciate my absence, so I've now got to try and find what's left of the Coke can to see if we need to go to the after hours vet. So I don't think there will be any bruschetta tonight. Oh my god. I know I said I was done cooking, but I'm hoping that I can just puree this pumpkin that I grew in my garden, because pumpkin is really good for aiding digestive problems with dogs, and I think I have a tiny bit frozen somewhere in the freezer, but I can't find it, and I don't want to unpack the whole thing again, and I need to obviously give this to Rafa quite quickly if he's eaten a aluminium can or part of it. So I'm going to get this going, hopefully, depending on what it looks like on the inside, and maybe make some more just in case this happens again. But this is the first and only pumpkin I have ever grown. You can see it got attacked by a local mouse of some variety, or a little bush rat, although I think a bush rat would have done more damage. But feels nice and hefty, and this is certainly the first pumpkin I've ever grown, and it grew in winter, so that's not bad. Ow, so stabby! Oh, now I've got a splinter. Devil pumpkin. This dog, honestly, I was gone for 30 minutes. It looks alright. It's quite yellow, but I've never eaten this variety of pumpkin before. Maybe it's supposed to be. I'm going to save the seeds. I guess while the emergency dog food is cooking, I should try this while it's still vaguely warm. Well, I guess the pull apart part of it is accurate, but it feels so dry on top, which fits with what the dough felt like. This is kind of like the wholemeal version of what it looked like and felt like last time. So, I mean, it does still have that nice juicy herby inner part. It's really not a very nice bread. It amazes me like how unflavorful gluten-free food is. And knowing what I experienced last time, I put even more filling in these ones. And it's still like somehow overpowered by the kind of gluten-freeness of the bread. I mean, obviously it's edible, but... See, I mean, this is my issue, is I don't mind gluten-free pasta. I've gotten used to it. But I really miss real bread. I'm yet to experience a gluten-free bread that really matches up. Some are better than others. Interestingly, the Costco one is pretty good, but I'm yet to find a home-baked recipe for a gluten-free bread that is actually nice, that doesn't have 65 million ingredients in it. So if you know of one, please let me know below in the comments. No more eating aluminium, hey? It was pretty late by the time I wrapped up, so I just chopped up the Rice Krispie treats and popped them into some containers to deal with the next day. And I was actually going to try and freeze some of these for the first time to see how they'd go defrosting, because that reduces the likelihood that these will get munched on all day, every day until they are gone, which is a very high risk situation in this house. The only thing left to do was to turn the crispy lemon rinds into a powder and preserve them. I may have not got as much done in the kitchen in the last 2 days as I hoped, but that's life. There are interruptions and things that happen, but we did make 4 different kinds of bread, all of which were experiments, so that was good. And made a stack of soup, which hasn't for some reason frozen in the new freezer, as well as a bunch of snacks and things like that. And the snacks are important because I've recently been on steroids, just come off them, and so I'm still having some lovely side effects from that. But you need snacks when you're on steroids. Like, your body just craves them, and I've been craving them a lot lately, and I haven't had any. And I didn't focus on dinners as much because I do still have some things like sausages and hamburger patties that need to be defrosted and used from the freezer. But hopefully we're going to make some more things in the next couple of days and weeks. I just feel like today is such a beautiful day, and it's so rare that we've had 2 days of sunshine, and it's beautiful and cloudless at the moment, so it's more important to be outside enjoying it. My main struggle with being inside and being in the kitchen is that I want to mass make these meals and I want to get on top of life, and I just feel like you can't really get on top of life. It's like having a puppy. Like, he seems okay, even though he might have eaten some of that Coke can last night, but he's definitely keeping me on my toes, although I'm feeling very flat-footed. But, you know, we all deal with issues in life. I struggle with the size of the oven in this rental and the lack of bench space, but, you know, it could be so much worse. So it's just time to go and enjoy a beautiful bushwalk and let Rafa be free and roam, and hope that he's okay, and hope that that emergency pumpkin did its thing. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. If you have any clues for how to make a good gluten-free bread, please let me know. I need help.